All right. Well, here we go. Welcome to another episode of Aftershocks on the CMS Podcast Network. And today our guest is veteran drummer who's been in the LA hard rock and metal scene for decades now. And he's here to talk to us today about his legendary Sunset Strip band LA Guns and their brand new release titled Renegades, set for a November 13th release on Golden Robot Records. Mr. Steve Riley. Steve, man, thanks so much for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. Good seeing you guys.
Yeah, same here, man. Well, shit, man. It's great to finally see and hear some new music from the new record. I know it was supposed to come out this past spring, but of course, due to the pandemic, it got pushed back like so many others have. And more importantly, man, this is the first new music that we're hearing from your version of the band. So that's got to feel real great, even though it's not obviously the most ideal situation, not being able to play these songs live right now for the fans. But just I guess go ahead and talk a bit about some of the obstacles that the band had to overcome in order to finally, just get this record out. Because, I mean, even just, getting the physical product, manufactured these days is, a huge accomplishment in and of itself with all the pandemic.
It totally is, man. We were lucky to hook up with Golden Robot Records. They are solidly behind the band, and things happened really quick in 2019. Me and Kelly Nichols, we decided to do M3 show in, I believe it was May of 2019. And we were doing that pretty much to check out and see what we had going. We had Kurt Froelich on vocals and Scotty Griffin on guitar. The show went over unbelievable. And everybody was so thrilled with how the band sounded. And one thing led to another. We grabbed management, New Breed Management, and Eric Baker and Bobby Collin. And from there, they brought us over to Golden Robot Records. And things snowballed so quickly that we were in the studio in a matter of months after that. And everybody in the band is living all over the country. Kelly's in New York, I'm in LA, Scotty's in Vegas, Kurt's in Florida. So we had to go about this in a different way. We had to do a pre-production via the internet, and we started exchanging songs over the summer, and we did that for about a couple of months. And everybody in the band writes, so we had like about 30 songs everybody was exchanging with each other, and we whittled it down to 10 songs, and we were in the studio in November. Actually, they came out for a week of pre-production, and we went right into the studio, and we ended up doing the album old school way. It was like 2 weeks in the studio. There was like a week of recording, a week of mixing and mastering, and we were done. And, it sounds dodgy because it was done so quickly, but we were so happy with the way it came out too, man. We were just thrilled. And I got to produce the album. So I got everybody to come out to LA, and we just buckled down and we went for it, man. It was great.
Yeah, well, and it sounds great, man. Like I said, the song Renegades it's fantastic, man. So yeah, it's great. As a fan, it's great to hear new music, man. And obviously it's no secret, obviously, what's been going on with the LA Guns name over the years when it comes to having the two versions of the band and the scrutiny that you've had to face over the years for going through with your version. So how crucial is it for you now personally to get this record out there to show the fans that this version is legitimate and you're serious about it, and it's not being done in the same way or for the same reasons as say like the Bobby Blotzer did with his version of Rat, for example?
Right. No, the thing with the two versions of LA Guns has been going on for almost 2 decades now. Mm-hmm. Tracii quit the band in 2002, and Phil and I, we continued on with the band from 2002 to like end of 2016. We ended up recording 4, maybe 5 albums. We did 4 albums with Andy Johns, and the two of us just kept plowing forward, and we were LA Guns. And the real bottom of the story is that I never really quit the band. I kept the band going, whether it was with the old classic members or whether it was Tracii alone and me and him doing 4 or 5 albums together alone, and then him leaving and me and Phil doing 4 or 5 albums alone. So I just kept the band going. I never stopped LA Guns from performing or recording. And I've always run the business for LA Guns, so I just kept moving forward, dude. It was just, it was a natural. And when Phil decided to leave at the end of 2016, it really, it was disappointing. But Kelly and I, we got together, and Kelly Nichols is such a prolific songwriter. You know, he wrote Ballad of Jane, and he wrote a lot of the early songs that we actually, we all co-wrote them, but he brought in the gist about Ballad of Jane. And you know, the first 3 singles that we released off of Renegades, Crawl, Well-Oiled Machine, and Renegades itself, those 3 songs were brought in by Kelly Nichols, and we ended up finishing them in the studio. So when Kelly came back to the fold, it was just a natural progression. We said, let's do this, let's move forward. And we knew the other guys were going out. They were actually going out as Tracii and Phil. I don't think they were even going out as LA Guns. And so we just decided we're moving forward. And, you know, I never really broke stride with LA Guns. And so when I've always asked the classic members to stay, I mean, it was a big thing with me. I always tried to talk them out of leaving, tell them we had a good thing going, and let's just keep moving forward. And it wasn't always successful. 3 of them wanted to leave in '95, and then Tracii left in 2002, and now Phil. So now, you know, Kelly's back. Me and him were brothers. We're the battery mates from the original band, and we just have a natural thing going, and we were lucky to score Kurt Froelich and Scott Griffin. It was just it was really not, we didn't even break stride at all.
Sure. Awesome. Now you mentioned Kurt. Let's talk about Kurt a little bit. He does not have the Phil Lewis sound, I guess. I don't want to say the traditional sound, because other singers have had different sounds along the way, whether it was Jizzy or Chris Von Dahl, etc. You know, there have been different sounds, and Kurt does not have that most traditional sound for the band, but I think he gives you guys like a bit of grit that maybe hasn't been there, you know, ever. You know, what was it about him that made you decide on him? Was he just somebody you knew could sing, or did you have tryouts and you liked what you heard, or how did you?
I actually lucked out, brother. The thing was that when Kelly and I decided to move forward, we knew we had to find a really good singer, and we were ready to audition some singers, but we lucked out. Somebody called us from Vegas and said, you got to check out this guy, Kurt Froelich. And I had never heard of Kurt, and he had been playing the Vegas scene for a long time. He had some original bands. He had some cover bands that he had been doing. And the guy told me, a friend of mine said, just check him out. And I went on the internet and I checked out some stuff that he had up on the internet. And he just sounded and looked great. And he was ready to go. We called him. He came out to LA. He was the first singer that we had checked out, and we lucked out. We really did. We didn't have to go through a ton of people and auditions, and we were ready to do that, but we were really, really lucky. He was the very first guy that came out, and we said, man, you can do this, and we can do this within your style. And he was a big LA Guns fan, so he loves the old material. He respects it. And he is just he's a really well-rounded musician and a great songwriter. He wrote 4 of the songs on the album. And like I said, we all co-wrote them because we finished them together. But he brought in 4 of the songs on the album. And he actually brought in the 4th single that will be released, All That You Are. And we just really, really lucked out with Kurt Froelich. Scotty Griffin, on the other hand, he had played bass in the band for a while.
Sure.
2 different stints. But he's a lead guitar player, and he was playing bass in the band because it was a good gig. And we were touring around the world, and we were recording, and I don't blame him for taking the gig as a bass player. We needed one. But when this came along, I called him and I said, Scotty, you should be playing guitar, man. That's what you do. And he plays great lead guitar. He was so into it. So, you know, with both Kurt and Scott, we didn't have to do any auditions. And it was just, boom, we were together immediately.
Sure, definitely. Now, you know, and this is outsider that's never written a successful song in his life to somebody that has. I imagine that bringing in a new guitar player, as a guitar player, new singer, and somebody that you haven't worked with in 20, 30 years, it had to be a crazy dynamic to put it all together and write songs and come up, especially when you had so many years of yourself and Phil writing together.
Right.
How different was the dynamic, or was it at all, or did it just all kind of come together naturally?
Well, because I had Kelly Nichols with me, it softened any kind of blow that was coming towards me, because we were such brothers and we stayed best friends through the whole thing. He just did not want to tour anymore after '95. He just didn't want to do it anymore. Me and Phil, we totally understood that. But because Kelly came back to the fold, he made it so easy. Scotty being already with LA Guns for so many years, that made it easy also. Kurt, on the other hand, it was a major change when you do a lead singer. And we had done, like you said, we had done Jizzy, Chris Van Dahl. We did Michael Starr from Steel Panther. He was in the band for an album. And so, Kurt was pretty much the newest thing that we had to deal with, because of me and Kelly having such a tight relationship, being a battery mates, being the rhythm section for LA Guns for so long, and Scotty being with us for a long time too. So, it's always a challenge, bro, when you're going to do something with new members, and you have to just bear down and believe in it. And so, we're a classic rock band. We have a stable of songs that we have to play for when we play live. There is no way we can't go out and do 2/3 of the show that is consisting of old material that we have written. We have to do those songs. The fans want to hear them. So, if we're lucky, we're going to be able to sprinkle in 3 or 4 new songs. And that's always been the case anyways, whether it was with Tracii or whether with Phil. We always had to do like 2/3 of the set is older material that's familiar with the fans, and then we're able to sprinkle in some new stuff. But you know what? It's a challenge, and I'm always up for it, man. I've been doing this for so long.
Sure.
I just believe in the band, and I believe when Kelly came back, he gave me so much more strength to move on and move forward. And so, I'll tell you, the dynamics do change, but you just move with it. You just go with it.
No doubt. Now, Steve, I'm going to be deadly honest with you. I was a huge skeptic, a big shit talker, and I'll just tell you that up front. I was. Sure. And then I heard the M3 stuff, and I was like, okay, much better than I expected.
Right.
Then I was still a skeptic until I heard the whole album. And now that I've heard the whole album, I'm like, okay, it's got the LA Guns flavor to it. Like, maybe, and it's weird because I don't think I would have chosen the same songs that you chose to release. Like, I would have released Lost Boys as one, because it has that underbelly of LA Guns, but it has that fresher sound vocally, which I really like. It's probably my favorite on the record.
That was a Scotty Griffin song that he brought in.
Very cool. But as a skeptic, I'm assuming I'm like most LA Guns fans, that's been with you since the beginning, since the debut or Cocked and Loaded. It's obvious to be a skeptic when Tracii and Phil are together and touring, and I know you know that.
Sure.
How do you go about convincing the mass collection of LA Guns fans that are out there that your band is, or do you even try to convince them that yours is the legitimate band or theirs is not legitimate, or do you not even worry about that? Do you just do your thing?
Yeah, because it's been going on for so long, since when Tracii ended doing Brides of Destruction, he ended up doing a couple more bands after that while Phil and I were recording. And then he decided to do his second LA Guns in about 2006, I believe, 2007. Right. So trying to convince anybody is not really in our game book. Me and Kelly co-wrote everything. If you look at the liner notes on all of the old albums, our names are on every song. We co-wrote every song with the band. So we're not really trying to convince anybody or say our version is better. We're going out to play LA Guns songs and write new songs that are true to LA Gun style. That's all we're trying to do. We're not going to try to step out a little too far from what LA Guns is. So we hope that we stay close to the LA Guns style, because that's the way we wrote anyways. And, you know, that's the way Phil and I wrote. That's the way Tracii and I wrote. So I'm not really into the point of trying to convince them. When we did M3, we went out there and blasted, man, and it went over so good that we knew that Kurt could handle the old material. Sure. And then we had to enter into a new phase of how can we write songs together and still stay true to the LA Gun sound. We didn't want to do something like American Hardcore, which is a total left-hand turn, and, you know, Tracii trying to do a Pantera or something like that. We didn't want to do something like that. It's too dodgy. We're too old of a band, too classic rock of a band to try to step away from our style. So it's not really trying to convince people. Me and Kelly feel like we are original LA Guns members. And like I said, Kelly wrote the biggest song we've ever had. He wrote Ballad of Jane, and he wrote a bunch of the other stuff that we brought in. So like we're just like confident in ourselves, and we're confident that we have the members to be able to play the old material really well and be able to record some new material really well too. I think we pulled it off too, you know. We've only done a couple of shows because of this COVID thing. We had to obviously do what every other band did. We had to postpone everything till next year. Sure. But we're just confident, bro. That's really where we're coming from.
Awesome. Yeah, you know, Steven, and I mean, just quick to piggyback on that. I mean, you know, the thing about the LA Guns, the band, I mean, there's plenty of bands out there that have two versions these days. You know, it's not that uncommon. But I think LA Guns is the only band where I think both versions still have the exact same name. So I guess my only question is, just as a fan, I mean, are you concerned at all in terms of the history, the band's history? I mean, how is history going to be recorded and remembered, you know, for LA Guns, because there's the two versions with that same name? I mean, is that something that concerns you at all, or is it just so, you know, too late in the game right now where you can't really be bothered with that? You're just going to do your thing and that's it.
You know what? I'm somewhat concerned because like I said, the classic lineup is the one that's best known. And the classic lineup is the one that was on the albums that sold the most, and we had the hits from those albums. And so with two bands being out, I think if I was by myself, I'd be more concerned. Having Kelly with me, I'm not really that concerned. But, you know, the thing is that there really are so many bands that weren't able to stay together, and they've split up, or they've gotten new lead singers, whether it's Skid Row, whether it's Queensryche, Great White. There's a lot of bands that have had to move on. And if we weren't songwriters on those original albums, I might have been a little bit more concerned that I'm just going out as the drummer who played on those albums, or Kelly's the bass player who played on those albums. No, we co-wrote all of those songs, every one of them. And so that gives you a little bit more strength knowing that. The way the history of the band will go down, it'll go down as known as the Classic Five, with Mick, Kelly, Steve, Phil, and Tracii. The bands that go on after that, we're you know, we gotta just not worry about it and let the fans let us know if they like it or not. Which why M3 was a very big balancing point. How are we gonna go over at M3? How are we gonna sound at M3 doing the older material? And I just think that we pulled it off really good. I think that the fan reaction and the reviews that we got from it was so positive that that's what propelled us on. And like I said, bro, I'm always the guy that I stayed with the band through the entire thing and tried to talk classic members out of not leaving. And it's just not successful all the time. People want to do other things. And so right now, Kelly and I, we feel very, very secure knowing we are LA Guns, because we are classic members. We are got co-writers on everything. So if that wasn't the case, I think I would feel a little bit different, but I don't. That's where our confidence comes from.
Sure. Makes sense, man. Absolutely. An interesting thing you just said, about how everyone, has really responded well to the band. The interesting thing is you guys really haven't spent much time playing together, right? You've only played a few shows up to this point, which is what's even more impressive, I think. And now with the pandemic, I mean, who knows when that's going to change? But did the recording of the record, I mean, did it allow you as a band to at least sort of come together, the four of you, in a more personal way that may benefit the band in the long term? Once you do go back playing live shows, because I do remember reading that you guys, and you said before as we started here, the interview, you guys all live in different states, and the fact that you've only played a few shows together, in essence, you really sort of like a brand new band, just trying to most likely still figure out how to best work with each other in terms of when you play together. But has the pandemic, have you guys been able to sort of, I mean, obviously I know, Kelly, for years, obviously, and, but Kurt, obviously being new into the band, has there been a way for you guys to sort of connect in any way during this pandemic at all?
It's been almost impossible, bro. That's why we felt so lucky. We were thinking about going into the studio in 2020, this year. When we started talking about the album last year, we were in the summer, we were saying, hey, should we kind of push this back and go and try just to do it next year and maybe gather a little bit more strength, a little bit more songs or what have you. And then we decided, no, let's move on. And we were so lucky that we went into the studio in November, mixed it and mastered it in December, and it was all ready, because if we had waited and done it this year or decided to do it this year, we were screwed. There was no way we could do it. So we felt so lucky that we got it done at the end of 2019. And that's another reason why we didn't release the entire album at the beginning of 2020, because we knew that our agent told us there aren't going to be any shows this year. It's going to be very difficult for anybody to get out there. So we started, not spoon-fed, but we slowly released one single after another so we could give the fans something new every 2 months and every 2.5 months. And that's what we did. We were lucky, and now we're ready to do a 4th single and release the whole album in November. And now maybe go out, and we've got dates galore in 2021. Everything in 2020 got moved to 2021, and they're all still solid dates. And the difference between what Kelly and I are going to do and what the other guys are going to do is we're not going to go out and do 250 club shows a year. We're not going to do that. I did that for like 20 years, and it's grueling. It's really, really grueling. You go on at 12:30 in the morning. You're staying at really shitty motels, and it's one thing after another. You're traveling 400 miles between each show. And so what Kelly and I are going to do is we want to do between 25 and 45 shows. We want to do all festivals, casinos, and theaters. We want to do stuff with the genre where there's a soft ticket, there's a bunch of bands on the bill, and they're nice shows with great equipment, and they're spread out, and we're not killing ourselves. We do not want to do that 200 to 250 club show thing away. I think the other guys are doing that. They want to do that, and that's fine. All the power to them, because we're going to be doing the opposite. So we're not going to be crisscrossing schedules where they're doing a club and then a month later we come in and do that club. We're going to really do very few clubs. If there's a satellite show that goes with a fair or a festival or a casino that we could do with that on a weekend, we'll do that as a club show or a smaller show. But it's going to be it's not going to be a lot of them, because we want to do, like I said, at the most 40, 45 shows in the year, and maybe go over to Europe and do a dozen shows, go to Asia and do a few shows. But forget that club run. We're really done with that. I've done it for years and years, and it's just, like I said, a grueling schedule that we don't want to do anymore. We'd like to go on early evening, mid-evening, instead of that 12:30 in the morning and say you're the headliner. That doesn't really matter to us. We want to just be on a nice bill with other bands from our genre. And I don't think the other guys want to do that. So it does separate us somewhat.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, just quickly too about Kurt, I mean, he experienced, a similar situation before when he was fronting a Tammy Downless version of, Faster Pussycat. So he got to experience, some of the hysterics, from fans and press that, doubt will face. Obviously to him, it's, he's been down that road before. So was that a sort of a big factor in your decision as well to bring him on board?
You know what? I knew that he had done that, but the factor that got me was, believe it or not, I looked at a video that he did on YouTube, and he had done a cover of a Bowie song, and he pulled it off. And not that LA Guns is like Bowie, but I'm a big fan of David Bowie. But he pulled it off so well, and I had also known that he had done the Faster Pussycat thing with Brent Muscat when Tammy wasn't doing it, or Tammy was doing another one. So he was a little bit tempered in how this thing was going to feel. And I also told him that when he does this with us, to be expecting some backlash. You're going to get some backlash. You're replacing the original singer, and people are going to compare you to that. They're going to come after you. And I think that he's done quite well. I think that people really like his voice. They like his look, and they obviously the biggest thing that we did so far was M3 that was all over the internet, and he pulled it off so well. But Kurt really was something that we got word about him, looked him up on the internet, and he just sold us on the internet. When we saw him do a couple of cover songs, he was in a Kiss cover band too. He was in a bunch of things. The guy kept working all the time. And he had a couple of original bands, but he was somebody that sold us on a couple of things that we saw on the internet.
Okay, very cool. Now, Steve, I'm just going to ask you straight up. Do you wish Tracii would stop with the fucking Twitter and just settle you guys' things either with a direct phone call to you or lawyer to lawyer or however it has to be, but not so much in the public eye where it doesn't do anybody any good? And in fact, to me personally, as an outsider, just a fan, it seems like it hurts both brands. It hurts both of you with all the bickering.
Well, you know what? I don't think that you've seen anything come from me and Kelly.
No, haven't.
No, we're not going down that road. He has gone down that road. From what I see from the fan reaction, bro, they don't like it. It looks bad, and it looks bad on him. And he started that a long time ago. He started it when Phil and I had continued the band on, and him and Phil had a big beef going for years. I mean, they did not like each other at all. Right. And actually, they really never liked each other. But the fact is that we worked through it in the original band. We worked through that, and we made it through that. But when Phil and I continued on, that's when Tracii actually started all of this stuff on the internet. Now, he's kind of taken it to another level, and even Phil's jumped in on it too. Kelly and I made a decision. We were never going to go down that road. We were not going to get on the internet and start mudslinging. We respect those guys. We did a lot of stuff with those guys, and we did a lot of stuff that was successful. Tours and recording and videos. And to mudsling or to say anything bad about anybody that used to play with me, it's just not in me, bro. I wish they wouldn't do it, but there's nothing that we can do to stop it. But like I said, from the fan reaction, from them writing stuff on the internet bad about Kelly, bad about me, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't go over well, and we know that. And so I tell you, we'll never go down that road. And you can really look it up. I don't think you've seen me and Kelly write one bad thing about them, and we just won't go there.
Right. No doubt.
I wish you wouldn't, bro. To answer your question, yeah, it looks bad. It looks horrible for both sides. And I just wish he wouldn't go down that road, but what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, ultimately you're not working together anymore where you can't control it. You know, it really is just that way.
Totally. And it's like, something that, wow, it's not in our blood at all to do that about anybody. I played with, Wasp 2 and Keel and a bunch of other bands. I'll never say anything bad about a former member. Nobody, not one thing. I'll never put Blackie down or Chris or Randy Piper. I'll never go that way. I did too much fun, good stuff with all of those guys that I can't even think of myself saying bad shit about them. It's just not there.
Yeah. And that's why you're still in business 35 years later.
I hope so, bro, because I think the fans don't dig it. I could see you don't like it, and I know a lot of people agree with you. They wish that he wouldn't go down that road, and it is what it is. You got to accept what's going on. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but you don't have to get on the internet and blast away. It just doesn't go over well.
Well, it does, and as a fan, it's frustrating because it's almost like forcing you to make a choice, and you shouldn't be forced to. This is art. You're gonna like it. You're gonna not like it. You're gonna whatever. But to be in a situation that's saying this is a fraud, this is fake, this is blah blah blah. It really forces anybody that likes both to not even be vocal about it. Like, I like both albums that the other guys did, but I'm wearing your hat. That's it's like whatever, man. It should be not discomforting as a fan to support music that you like.
Exactly. Without doubt, bro. I tell you what, the thing is that there's 2 original members doing the other thing, and there's 2 original members doing this. All 4 of us created all the music together. Otherwise, you would see different song credits on there, but you'll see all 5 members' names on every song. So, that's where our confidence comes from. That's where we feel that the fans have the right to like both versions.
Sure.
If they like the other version and they don't like what me and Kelly are doing, that's fine. That's their choice, and we respect it. But if they like both versions and they get fed a lot of crap on the internet about if you like that other thing, you don't come around us, man, that's bad news. That doesn't sound right.
No, you're 100% correct, man.
Really?
Steve, let me just play devil's advocate, and I'll play true devil here. You guys obviously have this whole court thing that has to get sorted out, and I know you're probably not able to talk about a lot of it, and I get that. And I don't really want to get into what's going on with that as much as sake of argument, you were to lose in court, just for sake of argument. Would this band, these 4 people, continue? Would it be whatever, Cocked and Loaded or Malaria, and would you move forward with it, or is the forward progress of this lineup dependent on being able to use the brand to promote it?
Well, you know what? Again, my confidence is that me and Tracii own the name legally. It's trademarked. It's in the trademark. It has been trademarked since the 90s. When the original members left, me and him stayed together. We were partners, and we did like 4 or 5 more albums together. And we trademarked the name together. And so both of us own the name. I feel confident about that. If anything happened, this band would continue on. We would find a way. We would figure out what we wanted to do. But I don't believe it's going to go that way. I believe both bands are going to be able to use the name. And I believe both bands will be able to continue on the way they're going to. It's in litigation right now. It's a mess. It's something that I didn't start. I didn't want to start because I realized what was legal, and I knew what I had done since he left in 2002.
Sure.
I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. And so, I know, and it's in confidence that where I'm standing in that whole situation. But again, I got dragged into it, and I've got to follow it through right now and see what happens with it.
Sure. Hey, Steve, just one last thing. We of course just last week, we lost a man who was really responsible for putting the Sunset Strip in LA hard rock and metal on the global map. The king himself, Mr. Eddie Van Halen, and how much of an influence was Eddie on you as a guy who moved to LA as a youngster, and you were fortunate enough to have a great career in LA. I mean, did you ever have any encounters with Eddie over the years, and anything you could share with us about him?
Yeah, I got a couple of stories that are really, I haven't told a lot of people. When I first moved to LA in 1977, I came out with to meet up with Mickey Jones. He was the bass player from Angel, and he had just left Angel. So Angel are people that I grew up with on the East Coast. Frank Domino, the lead singer, and I come from Boston, and we knew each other since we were very young. So Mickey Jones was a good friend of mine. He was the bass player in Angel. He had left Angel in mid-77 and asked me to come out here. Now, Van Halen were big fans of Angel because Angel was signed and they were one of the bigger bands in LA. And this is before Van Halen got signed. So Mickey was very good friends with Eddie Van Halen. And when I moved out in 77, I got to know Eddie well. And this is before Van Halen's album was even done because it came out in 78.
Right.
So they were still playing clubs around here. And the first thing I did was I got invited with the Angel guys to go see Van Halen at the Whiskey do their first album while it was being recorded.
Wow.
And obviously, like everybody else that saw that show, we were totally blown away. We could not believe what this band was doing on stage. They sounded so good and were playing so well. After that show, Mickey and Eddie, they were going to go out for a couple of nights to the Starwood. They came by and picked me up. Eddie actually came by my apartment and picked me up with Mickey Jones in the old Van Halen van. It was a brown cargo van that they hauled their equipment around in. Eddie was driving, and I somewhat knew him, but through Mickey. And we went to the Starwood, the three of us, Eddie, Mickey Jones, and me. And we went to see Quiet Riot when Randy Rhoads was in the band.
Oh, wow.
And it was before Frankie and Rudy were in the band. It was the original drummer and the original bass player with Kevin and Randy. And we watched the whole show. We were getting stoned and getting drunk. And it's a funny story because Randy was burning. I had never seen Randy Rhoads play. And he was so good that night. But I had already seen Eddie at the Whiskey. Right. So I knew how good Eddie was. And I asked Eddie, I said, wow, this guy is great, isn't he? And Eddie was like, he's okay. And I was like, a little bit taken back. I was like, wow, really? He goes, yeah, it's okay. And it's just a funny story because I had, it was like one of those Zeitgeist things where I was in a room with Eddie watching Randy Rhoads and two guys that went on to become legendary guitar players. One watching the other, me asking one what he thought of the other one. And, I also got to listen to the Van Halen album when it was on cassette. A big photographer, Barry Levine, he did all the Kiss photos from the 70s, Barry Levine, and he did a ton of other photos. And I used to live with him up in the Hollywood Hills. And Eddie came up there with the cassette of the first Van Halen album. And we had just listened to the new Angel album. And then Eddie said, can I play you my new album? And we were all like, yeah, come on, man, play it, because we know how good the band was. And we just could not believe it, man. It was so good. And it didn't matter if we were listening to after the Angel album or after any album. That album, I listened to it on cassette before it was even pressed. And I just knew this was going to be huge. So I got to hang with Eddie. He even invited me and Mickey out to the Pasadena Civic Center when they played out there in 77. And I believe that Tim Tebelman was talking about it recently in one of his interviews, that that's where they went to see them too, before they went in to record. And So, those early years I got to hang with Eddie, they took off so big in 78 that it was a natural progression where you kind of separate. I was doing my thing and he was taking off like a bird and, moving into a different circle. So I didn't get to hang with them a lot. The next time I saw Eddie was when Wasp was playing in Atlanta and he was playing with Sammy Hagar in 85 and we went over to their show. And that's the last time I saw him and Al, and we went into their dressing room and hung out. But it was a couple of weird stories. And before he made it, I was hanging out with them a few times, and I got to go see Randy Rose with Eddie Van Halen.
Wow, man. You're one lucky man there, Steve. That's awesome.
Great story, man.
That's a great story, man. Well, just to our listeners out there, once again, go ahead and pick up the new release from LA Guns titled Renegades, set for a November 13th release on Golden Robot Records. And Steve, go ahead and just let the fans know where they can go ahead and purchase merchandise and the new record once it comes out in November.
Well, I tell you, there's 2 places you can find out everything about what we're doing. One is laguns.net. Everything is there. You can purchase the album there. You can purchase bundles there. We're putting all kinds of bundles together with shirts and stickers and photos, and there are 3 different colored LPs. And the other one is goldenrobotrecords.com. And those 2 sites, you can find anything and everything about what me and Kelly Nichols and LA Guns are doing, and how to purchase the album, how to purchase a bundle, and actually what shows we're going to be doing too.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully we'll be seeing you play one of those shows in the not too distant future. And good luck with everything, Steve. And thanks so much for coming on us. Really appreciate it. Good luck with everything, buddy.
Thank you guys, man, for having me. And thanks for all the support. You guys are great.
Always, buddy. Take care, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.